Living your life for God and prioritizing Him in your marriage can be uncomfortable, and it goes against the current of today's world.
So we created a podcast to talk practically about our marriage and family, because we may make a plan, but God is the one who directs our steps.
And that has led us here to Radical Direction. The following podcast is a ministry production of The Sevenfold. To find out more, go to thesevenfold.com.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the show.
Hey.
My name is Jacob Price.
And I'm Virginia Price.
And we're this married couple who have been married for almost 10 years and are glad that you guys are here.
Whoop, whoop.
If you haven't had a chance, please go back and listen to the episodes or just continue with this one. Doesn't matter. It's all applicable.
Welcome to the show if you guys are new. And if you're not, welcome back. And thanks for tuning back in with us. Jacob.
Virginia.
What are we talking about today?
Today, we're going to talk about is who's the breadwinner?
Dun, dun, dun. The Lord put this on your heart sometime and then
has repeatedly nudged me, and now it's a topic on this podcast.
Okay, so without actually getting to the punchline, let's tell us a little bit about this concept of why are we talking about who's the breadwinner?
Okay, well, society has this norm of a breadwinner, right?
Yeah.
That there is somebody who brings home the bacon or the most bacon, as it were, or brings home more money than the other person in the relationship. And they're often seen as the breadwinner. And what society tries to do is put a level of entitlement, a level of, because I bring home the money, I have a greater say in what things are done, or, my opinion matters more, or if it's a tie, then I overrule, or whatever have you, right? So that there's some level of, I'm entitled to make the decisions, and then the other person, because they're not the breadwinner, is expected to do everything else, right? Literally everything else in the relationship.
I have a job and I make the money, and therefore that's my only responsibility, and you need to do all the other things.
Yep.
Or at least puts the continual pressure on the other person, even if they help. It's like that pressure is always being applied and constantly being applied to the spouse that's either not working a traditional job or not bringing home the majority of the income. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we're here to
riot against it.
Break that. Break that unbiblical bond in Jesus' name.
Yeah. This has been... it's interesting because this is not something that you and I have really dealt with in our marriage. Mm-hmm. We've come through... I guess I'll lay it out this way. We haven't really dealt with that issue, but we have run into some issues.
Yeah.
So really simplifying that, my heart has always been to be a stay-at-home mom. At the same time, I've always been like, no, I'm going to have to occupy my time and do something else because I want to keep my brain engaged in that like adult way that you get from business and working. And so I've known that I wasn't going to do nothing, but I have also had it on my absolute heart and my dream to be a stay-at-home mom ever since I was in high school. Like I wrote papers about it senior year. Like, what do you want to be? A congressman. I want to be a mom. Like, let me stay home with my babies.
Surrounded by all the babies.
Yeah. And then when Jake and I were getting married, we had an older couple that spoke to us, and she was like, hey, is it in your heart at all to be a stay-at-home mom? And I said, yes, for sure. And she goes, okay, then right now, since you guys just got married, do everything humanly possible for you guys to live off of only Jacob's income. Like, make that your goal. And as soon as we set that as our intention, within, we weren't able to do it, but then shortly within maybe 4 months or 3 months, it was like very quickly, the Lord gave Jacob literally just a big enough raise that we could technically live all of our expenses on his income alone. And so then, we did other things with my income over the years as I earned it. But then, as soon as our firstborn son was born, I had to stop working. And so then it was great. There was no hiccups. There was no stress. There was no issues for me staying home and losing that income because we were already living off Jacob's and we only used my income for extra stuff. Now that doesn't say that's not to mean that there wasn't sacrifice because we were saving money and we were also paying for my tuition for college at the time with my income, which then I had to stop pursuing that. So that was not. So it's not like it was without. It's not like it was without sacrifice.
Without sacrifice, yeah.
But that transition was way easier because we were already dependent on you. And so, no, fast forward 10 years, we've still remained dependent on you. And that has been really great. However, we haven't had those issues of breadwinner mentality because, well, let's be real. One, I would never allow that. I mean, like, just being honest, my personality and my character of who I am, I would never allow for Jacob to have like this entitled, like, oh no, I get to have the say. And now, granted, that's also, Jacob knows that about me, and Jacob's not that guy. So he would never do that because he's just not that person.
Well, and that's not, having gone through church prior to our current church, and then just how the Lord's worked through me and in me, and I guess just how he's wired me. It's right. No, I mean, it's a mutual respect. It's, when you get married, it's you and them. The where the rub comes from is when you're in society and you are pressured, and you see it on.
Not entirely. It's not all societal. I mean, look how many Christian couples are that they struggle with this. They struggle with this. Like, it's not just a societal thing. It's also a mindset thing that people, if you're prideful, if you lack humility, if you take a lot of pride and honor in your work, if you are a person who is maybe incredibly stressed out, you're a stressed person, right? If you're narcissistic at all, there's lots of people that have nothing to do with societal pressure necessarily that struggle with this control. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, it's a control problem.
Yeah, and I guess maybe pressure wasn't the right word, but there's not a lot of things. It's not really brought up to go against that, right? There's not a lot. You don't hear it often where people are talking about, oh no, you have one income household, but you're joint together on that, right? It's not something that's broadcast. It's not something that you typically see in everyday conversations, right? So a lot of the reinforcement would have to come from the church. And if you are also struggling with that within the church, it makes it hard to have that kind of discussion, or at least to come up organically.
I mean, I think I don't know if I agree with all of that, but I think that it's definitely, if you said like, oh, my husband and I have, separate bank accounts, as long as the majority of your bills and things are paid out of a joint bank account, then most people are like, oh, that's fine. Like, as long as you have something joined together, then that's fine. But there is still a great deal of like, if you have separate bank accounts, it's okay as long as you have something joint together. And
well, from my perspective on that is, I think we talked about it in the prior.
Hold on, I didn't get to finish my story.
Okay.
Because I was saying that we haven't had that struggle necessarily because of our personalities, but also that's not to say that we're without struggle, because when I had a job where I was working 25 hours a week, it was still inside the home. But I had meetings, I had deadlines, I had projects and things that I was responsible for doing, that if I obviously didn't put my butt down in a chair and do the work, then it was falling behind. And I had people who were obviously like in charge of me who noticed if I was not doing those things and like, hey, why is this thing not done? Or can you have that thing yet? And so like that led to some problems with us, because you are the primary, you are the breadwinner of the family, right? You're the person who we depend upon to live. And so it was kind of like this thing of, I'm still responsible for the children because that's still my job. But now here I have this job where I'm working 25 hours a week, which is not nothing, trying to manage and raise children at the same time on top of that, right? And so it's like, well, if anyone has to give, I'm the one that has to give, because you're the one who's responsible for supporting our family. And so that caused a lot of riff and tension, because
the
my
jobs
job
I had were having me go in the office 5 days a week.
And I'm just saying, like, my job, that doesn't mean that it's not important.
No.
Right. But so that caused some rift between us, because, you're like, I need to work. And I'm like, well, I need to work too. Like, what are we going to do? Because I got to work too.
Yeah.
So that was certainly some tension there at that period of time too. So there's a lot of dynamic. I think what I'm trying to say is it not, it doesn't always have to just be, I have the money, therefore I make the decisions, which is a whole problem within itself, which is what Jacob's talking about. There also becomes problems of, okay, well, who takes priority and what parent or what, adult does what, and who has what responsibilities because of that.
And in both instances, really, it's looking at it like, this is not a separate problem. This isn't, oh, well, this is my problem. This is your problem. No, it's a us problem, right? You're joined.
That's a good way, yeah.
You're joined together. So in that instance that you brought up, it's like, no, we need to figure this out together.
Team Price is having an issue.
It's team price. It's not, oh, well, you have to take care of the kids and you've got your 25-hour job. I've got my 40-hour job in the work office. And I make the most. So therefore I should get priority because, we are more dependent on mine. It's like, no.
I mean, that complicated the matter is that you weren't at the office, you were at home, right? So you were at home having meetings, having to work and adjust to working from home.
Yeah.
And it was like, that's a hard thing all in itself, but yeah. So, but your point is
back to the point is that, it's a joint, right? And, they're back to the, to circle back on the topic, right? It's, neither of us is the breadwinner, right? There is no breadwinner when it comes to us. It's joint. We are earning income together.
Yeah. And I will say too, like if you have a family dynamic where you have one person who's making the money and you've decided that like that's the roles that you guys are going to fulfill, I think the important thing here is maintaining expectations, setting clear expectations of like, okay, I might make the money, but maybe the other person's in charge of the budget. Or if the person who's making the money is also in charge of the budget, things can get really dicey in that situation. So then it's really important for you guys to have open communication, have budget meetings, sit down, review your finances together. And if you're the spouse and you're not working and you're not the one that's bringing home the money and did I already say that twice? You're not working? Yeah, you're not the one that's working and you're also not in charge of the budget. Then you have a level of responsibility upon you to be involved, especially if you don't want to be involved. If you're like, no, that's not my gifting. Like, I really don't care about money. It's so boring. You have to be involved.
It's a team effort.
Also, it's just too easy for the devil to sneak in. I'm sorry, you're the breadwinner and you maintain the budget and I don't even see the budget. So you're making the money and spending the money for the family. Like, it's just way too easy of a foothold for the devil to come in and do something stupid. And so I would say you have to be
it's also a level of accountability too.
Exactly, right? Like, you have to be accountable, you have to be diligent from all parties involved.
Right. So there's that level of trust, there's a level of accountability, and you get that. But it's also like, you also don't want the person who doesn't have any insight to come begging to you for money. Right. It's not,
right.
It shouldn't be like that situation either.
It's also just not fair to not know. It's not fair to not know. Like, as women, we have a great sense of security tied up in the money that we have or we don't have. If we're doing well financially, if we have money in savings, things feel better. If we, don't, then things feel a little bit more dicey. Women generally get a great sense of security from those things.
When you have this giant mystery wall because you
have no idea.
Yeah.
Like, how much is that really affecting you? And you might think that you're a totally type B personality, go with the flow, like, I don't care. But I would beg to differ with a part of your brain. I can almost guarantee there's a piece of your brain that's like, it would be a lot more at ease if you knew what was going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it's also like the person who is doing the budget thinks that it's not easy to do everything by yourself. Right. So you have your partner and you may say, oh, well, I'm fine with them not being involved. It's like, well, no, there's probably part of you that's like, no, I'd actually like them to be more involved.
Yeah.
So that when we are trying to make a decision and they're not getting it, that might be because they haven't been involved.
Jacob, it sounds like you're speaking from experience.
Maybe.
Jacob makes the money in our family and I do the budget. I'm the budget lady. And there are many times when Jacob's like, no, we'll do this. No, we'll do that. Or we can just do this, right? Or we can just do that. And I'm like, do you open the budget? Are you looking at it? Do you not track with me what's going on? Because we have like budget software, so we can both see everything that's happening at the same time. It's like totally open transparency. But it's like, if you just glance over something and you're not really ingesting the information, it's like, I don't think you appreciate where we're at right now. Like, I need you to sit down with me and like get it.
Yeah, and when we first started doing the budgeting, that was how it was. But I think now it's come to a place where I'm trying to make sure that I'm in the budget, that we're sitting down and that we're budgeting together, and that's equal participants. You're still,
and it helps that I say make you, but that's not the right word. I just don't have a better one right now. Like, make you participate in the sense of like, I'm like, okay, you take these $500 or $1,000 and you budget it, right? Like, you pick the categories where it's going to go. And then it has a greater level of significance on you because you're like, oh man, yeah, like that is kind of a tough decision. Where's what going to go where?
Well, yeah, but it's also practice, right? Because in some cases it's just hands-on. Like I need practice to be able to, okay, no, I know this goes. Or, oh yeah, there's that thing, right? And just remembering where all these things go.
I mean, I just mean from a decision-making standpoint of like you have 20 buckets that all need this money, but you can only fill 5. Like, what are you going to pick? There's a level. Then it's like, oh, I really get it now. Like I understand.
Yeah, you have a visual representation of where your family's going to have to sacrifice if, for example, you've come up short. In order to meet all the
and even if you're
basic obligations and then all the excess,
right? And then even if you're flip side and you're plus on it, it's like, well, you still have to be really good stewards of your money. Like you have to make that choice of like, okay, yeah, we have maybe an extra $200 in the budget this month, and we've done all the things that we need to do, but like we probably should not just eat out that $200. We should probably do something better with it. So. I would love to like do a whole budgeting boot
like a
camp.
budgeting episode.
Oh my
I
gosh.
would do like a budgeting episode.
Let's just do
radical direction for budgeting.
Radical budgets.
Radical budgets for God. Budgets for God. There you go. That could be the name of the podcast.
You're not good at naming things.
Listen.
But you're good at picking wives.
That's why you're my helper.
So
you help me.
Amen.
Circling back. So, we've talked about a couple topics here. You say you want to say something.
I do want to say something.
Okay, go for it.
Thank you for reading my face and
reading your bodily language. Just like something.
My biggest thing with this whole topic of people with that mindset of like I'm the breadwinner is you really need to take a look at yourself and think, am I the one with control problems? Mm-hmm. And if you're the spouse that's on the other side of this, and you're like, yeah, I hate that my spouse does this. And you recognize that tendency, then like you're going to have that conversation with your spouse of, listen, I really need to get in on this. Like you need to share with me the things that are going on. You need to bring me in on decisions. Like you can't have a control over this thing because control is of the devil. Control issues are not godly. Like we are not supposed to have those kinds of reins that are held on our budgets. God gives us our money. God gives us what we have. We are stewards of what he gives us. And so if you're like, no, this is mine, I get to decide where we do it, and I get to decide because I'm the person who makes the money, then you really need to take a look in the mirror and take a look in your heart and your soul and let Jesus look at you and refine you and put a flashlight, whatever metaphor you want to use, shining on that spot, because it's not a godly character that he wants us to have, where we're controlling and manipulative and we're holding tight to something and not letting our spouse in on it.
Well, it's like who should have, I mean, who should have I guess not very control, but who should have the reins over the budget, right? Reins over the money, right? It's who is the true provider, right? And who is the breadwinner. And that's Jesus. And
God brought you two together in marriage. He didn't bring the two of you together so one of you would make all the decisions. I don't care if you're the husband and you're the head of the house and you're the leader of the family. God gave you a wife. So by rejecting your wife in that, you're also rejecting some of God's characteristics. And you can't reject God. That's not going to end well for you. So like you need to embrace your partner in this.
It's also humbling yourself too. Yeah. Right. It's humbling yourself and serving, right? It's okay. Yeah. I am in employment that pays me a lot of money, and I need to be humbled because that money didn't come from me. I didn't generate that income. God gave me my job.
Well, I'll tell you what, God humbled me. I was working, contributing to the household, and it was definitely contributing in a meaningful way to the home. And I felt really good about that. And I was happy about that. And listen, Jacob and I are very generous people. If we get money, we give it, and we give our time, we give our food, we cook for people, we help our friends. Like we're very generous people. And I'm not saying that to like say how great we are. I'm just saying like, this is how we are by nature. And even still, there was an element of us working both where it felt really good to have two streams of income that were actually meaningful. It felt good for me as a wife to actually be meaningfully contributing to the family. And when that job got taken away from me, the Lord didn't take it away from me for any negative reason at all. He was actually answering a prayer by removing me from that job. It was literally an answer to prayer. I was so stressed about it all the time. But even still, in that answering of prayer of me losing that job, the Lord still used it as an opportunity to open my eyes and show me, like, do you see, though, how these tendencies and these behaviors were starting to creep up and potentially turn into something bad? Do you see how this was starting to kind of affect your mindset and your attitude around the money and you being able to give people and help people? And you see how it was starting to turn into a little bit of like a not seniority. What's the, like, I'm like pompous, or like I'm all that because I can help you. I forget what's the word for that.
Arrogance.
There you go. That's a good one. And like he reinforced to me. He's like,
the Pharisees or the rich man.
I didn't take it away
like...
from you. And he reinforced to me, I didn't take it away from you because of that. But now that it is away, can you see that? And it's like, dang, yeah, I can. And that's a humbling moment where you think like, man, I've really started to slip and mess up on that. And if you don't think you have any issues like that, talk to your spouse. Because
let me tell you here. Let me tell you some things about you that you don't know.
You might be surprised. I'm just saying, we all have flaws. We all have ways that we fall short, right? We have all fallen short of the glory of God. But
even in like employment.
But go ahead, get to your thing. Get to your thing now, Jacob.
Employment and jobs and all those things are fluid. So 1 minute you could be the breadwinner, and the next minute your spouse is the breadwinner because something happened.
Minute none of y'all had no money.
Next minute you was worse. So the take home here is, it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter how much money you make, right? The moment you start getting that entitlement, I think, is when you are forgetting on who your source is, right? And the breadwinner here is Jesus. We sing the songs, you are my victory, right? And take everything, it all belongs to you, right? But when you actually think about it, it's like, no, if this is true, who owns the cattle on the hills and the hills themselves, right?
Who owns the cattle on 1,000 hills?
Yeah. Who
is the manna? Who gives the manna? Mm-hmm. Who supplied the bread in the desert? Like,
and who took his bread and broke it and gave us some? Right? He went to the cross for us so that we could have over an abundance, pressed down, shaken, overflowing, right? So that we could have sustainment in this broken world, so that we could be lifted up, right, his righteous hand, right,
so
and
that
delivered
we
from
could
the fowler.
Be the sheep, that he is our shepherd.
So that the devourer can be rebuked, right? All of these things point back to him. So who's the breadwinner? It's him. Not you, not your spouse, not the government, not your employer. Well, I earned that one in certificates. And who wired you to think that way? Who wired you to be able to do these things?
Hey, listen, the Bible says the Lord gives and he takes away.
Oh, exactly.
Like, you can look at Job. Job was blessed and favored by the Lord, and he had all these things. And the Lord allowed Satan to do the things that he did. And it all...
This will be my faithful servant Job. He will not curse me.
You know what I mean? But like, even in that, it's like, remember that you did not cut anywhere on your own merit. Everything you have is a blessing from the Lord. And that's really hard for some people who are highly skilled and highly talented to recognize, like, this is not from God, this is me. But I tell you what, the second you start living and actively choosing of, this is mine, I did this, I accomplished this, I made it here, and you stop giving God the glory for what is rightfully his,
look at what I can achieve. Look at what I am doing.
That is the day that you are going to then have to support yourself and sustain yourself on your own efforts and your own self.
And that's not going to work out for you
it's
at all. It might seem like it will. It might seem like it will.
It's
like,
exhausting.
I can do that. And you start thinking, I can do this. I don't need God. I don't need to give. I don't need to tithe. I don't need to do these things. Right?
This is the crux of it. Anything that is created in your own effort has to be maintained in your own effort and by your own effort. That's why we don't want to go into business if God doesn't bless it. That's why Moses said, I'm not going if you're not going with me. You go and I'll follow. Like, I'm not going to go if you're not there with me, because anything we do in of ourselves is then have to be sustained in and of ourselves. Right? What can man do? Man can do nothing apart from God, the word says. But man can do all things through Christ who gives me strength, which means that if you're trying to take your job into your own hands, and you're trying to be a millionaire, and you're trying to build a business, and God didn't anoint any of it and didn't tell you to do any of it, and you're just doing it on your own, you might succeed and you might get places. But the sustaining of that is going to have to be from the own sweat of your own brow too. And I'll tell you what, I much rather work with the Lord and partner with the Lord and go where he wants me to go and have him bless me and anoint me and give me direction along the way than try to maintain it by my own effort.
Right. And then where you found yourself and the path that you found yourself on is the one that is wide is the path of destruction that leads to,
That's
death.
good.
Right. And even then back to
narrow is the gate.
Narrow is the gate. And then even leading back to the example you gave about Job, right? And God says, well, where were you when I created
right,
the
because the
heavens and
devil
the earth?
gets all prideful again. This is what gets me.
Where were you? Like you say, I, when it comes to, it's all about me, 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 me. And God's like, where were you in the formation of the universe?
Yeah.
Right. Where were you?
Were you there when I formed the earth?
Yeah.
Were you there when I formed the stars? Were you there when I formed you? This is one of the things that I just like drive home over and over again in my head that the Lord is constantly showing me is how so many problems go back to pride. Pride was the downfall of Satan.
Mm-hmm.
Satan was an angel. He got puffed up. He thought he was something. He thought he could be God or better than God. Pride, and it caused him to fall. Pride is the first thing that caused the humans to fall. Did God really say that? Oh, God wouldn't really say that. He wouldn't really tell you. And what was it? It's the knowledge of the tree of good and evil. You're understanding. You're seeking to understand. You're seeking for the things that aren't yours to know. That's pride. That caused Satan to fall. That caused man to fall. And so many of our issues, like this one in particular, you have an issue of control. You can't let go of that thing of I make the money, I'm the breadwinner, I'm bringing it home, therefore my opinion matters more, therefore my desires for what we eat or what we drink or what we wear should be more important because I'm the one who makes the money. Yeah. Satan. You've
moved God out of the picture and being head as your household and giving you covering and giving you direction to no, it's all about you. So let me make this little figurine of me and put me on top of that.
And that's the thing. It's like pride
idol.
And that's why for me, that's why I told you the story about my job, because that's a part of the reason why I feel like one of the saving graces of the Lord, one of his mercies over me was pulling me out of that job before that mindset got too destructive. Because pride, I think, is the greatest enemy to humans. I think is the greatest enemy to our relationship with God. We have to be submissive. We have to be servants. We have to be gentle in spirit. We have to be low and meek. We have to serve. We have to wash feet. Everything that Jesus does is the opposite of prideful. Everything he does is humility. And I think it is the greatest inhibitor to our relationship with God and meaningful godly relationship with one another is pride. And I think that the Lord in his mercy, aside from answering a gigantic prayer request of mine, because I was totally battling, I was literally teeter-tottering before, okay, do I just hire a babysitter and go 40 hours a week full tilt into this job, or do I quit? I was literally like, that was the only two choices.
But the decision got made for you.
And the decision got made for me. And that was such a mercy. It was such a load off my shoulders. I was so relieved. But at the same time, right, like I said, the Lord was showing me these things that I had started to slip in. And I was so thankful because over the years, like I said, the Lord's been showing me this thing on pride and how so much of it goes back to pride. And pride is the downfall of Satan. And like so much of his tactics have to do with pride. And it was just like, I was so thankful. I was so thankful that the Lord was like, yeah, I'm like, you protected me from who knows what, just by nipping that in the bud before it got worse. Before it took root, before it took hold of like, look how great I am because I'm contributing to the family too. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. And I would highly encourage all of you guys to take a look into what's going on in your life and take a look at your finances, take a look at your marriage, take a look at your relationships with people, you know.
And if you think there's a breadwinner and you support that, then I would really humbly ask you to reconsider where God is in your provision, right? In your relationship, right? And where you have placed him, right? Is he above you? And are you being obedient to him? Or did you put him in a box, right? Is he an ATM machine, but you're the one that has the controls, right? Is that where you've placed him?
Wow.
Right? Versus, oh no, I'm a steward I'm not just a steward of the finances I've been given, but I'm also a steward of my family. And I'm supposed to be one flesh. I'm supposed to be with my spouse. We're supposed to tackle these things together. And we're supposed to be stewards together, right? How can you be a steward together with somebody if they're not involved or you don't let them be involved?
And this is the thing that I love about what you just said, Jacob, is because God is our shepherd and he loves us and he will care for us. And we see that image of Jesus with a sheep drape over his shoulders, carrying the sheep with the broken leg because he's such a good shepherd. But he's not just a shepherd. He's also a king. He's also a lion. Like, who are you to be prideful? Who are you to be puffed up? Mm-hmm. So anyway, that's my 2 cents for you.
So, again, who's the breadwinner?
Hashtag Jesus, baby.
Hashtag Jesus. He won it all for us.
Manna from heaven.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Don't place yourself above him. Place yourself in a stewarding, humble position. Involve your spouse. They are on equal footing, even if they don't have a job or are not contributing, quote, as much as you, right? They are still equal to you. You are equally yoked. You are one flesh, right? And you are meant to work together and be stewards of what he's given you.
Hallelujah.
Amen.
Amen. I will see you guys in the next episode. Don't forget to rate it, share it, like it, comment it, do all the things, because we're your friends and we love you and we would love your help in supporting us by pumping this episode out to more people. If you're so inclined, head to the7fold.com. You can partner with us there. You can donate to the ministry to support our show and keep this show running, and we can create more shows like it and similar content. Love you guys the mostest, and we'll catch you on the next episode.
Love you all. Live radical.
Go live radical. Woo! Bye. This episode has been made possible by our generous viewers and audience members just like you. If you'd like to donate to the show to keep our ministry running and growing, producing more shows just like this one, please head to the7fold.com/partners to donate there. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Radical Direction. Until next time, go live radical.